Another term we use, planets have qualities. The term in Sanskrit is gunas. Gunas, someday we will go over the gunas. It's a whole study on its own. But I'm translating these three gunas, which are very important in Vedic thought, tamas, rajas, and sattva, as body, mind, and soul. So the more body-oriented planets, that's their job, to protect our body, are Saturn, Rahu, and Mars. The more mental planets, mental as in mind-oriented planets, are Venus, Mercury, and Moon. And the more sattvic, the more pure planets are Jupiter and the Sun. Okay? Let's see. Next slide here. So I'm going to try to relate this slide, the last slide, to what we know in science today. Now, there's a very old model called the Triune model. Triune or Triune, I'm not sure. It's pretty old. It's, 25, 30 years old. But when it first came out, people were really excited about it because we didn't know much about, neuroscience at that time. But it still serves, just like me teaching you, when I first teach you, I have to teach you the simple principles. And it's not simple. So in the same way, this serves to help us understand the simple principles. So what the scientists who created this model said was that there are 3 layers in the brain. What we know today is they're not literally 3 layers, they're all over the place, but let's just use this to understand the nature of the planets, the karaka, the signification of all the planets in our consciousness. And these 3 layers are the reptilian complex, which is the basal ganglia, the paleomammalian complex, which includes the amygdala and the cingulate cortex and, the septum, these portions of the brain. And then the third one, he said, was the neomammalian complex, which is the cerebral neocortex. Okay, so these are the 3 layers, he said, which exist in everybody's brain. All right? And so let's look at each one separately. The basal ganglia, which is about 250 million years old, is the oldest part of our consciousness. You remember, we are built on all our ancestors, and I'm not talking just the 7 generations of the Eastern, Eastern societies are really obsessed with it. 7 generations are very important. Everything we do, we want to know how is it going to affect the next 7 generations. But we're here talking about our ancient memories. So our basal ganglia is 250 million years old. It's often called the reptilian brain. It's designed for survival, the territorial instincts, the fight or flight instincts in us. And it is naturally more aggressive. And the desire to dominate is part of its survival mechanism. And this exists in all of us. And it's very important to know this. I think that when we do a lot of spiritual practice, there can be so much deception that we forget that within us lies, what Jung called the shadow, right? There are these, if somebody hurts your baby, you can bite their face off. That's when your basal ganglia or your, reptilian instincts are going to kick in. And it's a process of evolution. So in a sense, Mars, Saturn, and Rahu relate more to that. And as we will learn that each of the planets can actually relate to each of the different parts of the brain. So you can use Mars, Saturn, and Rahu for these things, but you can also use it, for the higher brain. But just to understand these planets' purpose that they're serving, I just go through this exercise. So Mercury, Venus, and Moon, they're more our paleomammalian brain, which is only about 150 million years old. And that's where social awareness, people getting together in groups and realizing that, if we work together, build relationships, our survival is better than just attacking, and it worked. I mean, that's part of the evolution of all creatures on this earth. So these planets, Mercury, Venus, and Moon, relate more to social awareness and relationships and belonging and caring and empathy and, emotions and our desire to parent and take care of, other people. And it's interesting in astrology, we say that really the only planets the planetary dashas that you can really enjoy are Mercury, Venus, and Moon. if they're well situated. Because what we really enjoy is all of these things. You know, we want higher things, but we're all driven, you know, our instinct is to, you know, to have good relationships and empathy and people joining together. And so these planets, they are the producers of that for us to survive. And finally, Jupiter and the Sun, they are the Neomammalian complex, which is just 10 million years old. It's often called the neocortex, which is situated, it's kind of a dime-sized little, you know, piece here, right between the third eye. And this portion of our brain or our consciousness has the capacity to take us to the moon. You know, animals have the mammalian instincts of joining and getting together, but they don't have that higher abstraction to, you know, to go to another planet. You follow? Or, I mean, to go to the moon. So reasoning, altruism, language, complex language, abstraction, planning, perception, all of these things relate to these two planets. Okay? Now, I want to be sure that you understand that what we will learn as we go on is that each of the planet can function in any of these three areas. So your Mars can function, as we will see, as part of your neocortex, your neomammalian complex. And your Jupiter can go back and function, depending on how it's situated and how you use it, with the reptilian instincts. But generally speaking, this is the category we use. And this will become more clear as we go along. And if it's not, please send me a chat, because these are pretty heavy topics. But since all of you in this class will have a strong Jupiter and a strong Sun, otherwise you wouldn't be taking this class. So I am pretty comfortable moving ahead fast. Okay, whoops, the next slide. All right. And Ketu, this is a whole different ball game. I mean, Ketu is higher consciousness because he's not connected to anything in the physical realm. So, you know, Ketu is, we call the fourth brain in Vedic knowledge, which is beyond the body, mind, soul consciousness. You know, there's something even beyond the body, mind, and soul, because he's connected to the divine. So each planet, as we're going to learn, there's not a good or a bad planet. I really want to get this. This is so important that you understand, because books and, you know, lectures that you hear, people don't always understand, and they will tell you, oh, this one is really good. And you know, sometimes when I first teach astrology, people will say, oh, that's a good one, right? And that's a bad one. No, there is no good or bad. It's how you use that planet. I mean, it's like saying water is good, stone is not good, depending on what you're needing in that moment. If you need water, you know, if somebody shows up with a stone, that's not going to be very helpful to you. But if you need to crack open a coconut so you can get the water because you're really dying of thirst, believe me, that stone is good. Okay? So there isn't a good or bad planet, and each planet is divine, and it's a doorway to our evolution, to our freedom, to our enlightenment. So Jung said, gods we forget to honor and gods we overdo. It's one of my favorite quotes, because all of us, and that's really what the astrologer is looking at, which planetary energy or which element, because remember they're connected to the element, are you over honoring, and which one are you dishonoring? So we want to learn to honor each of the planets. Each of them are deities in the Hindu Vedic system. They, you know, each of them have their own temples. Do you know that? Each Rahu has his temples, Ketu has his temples, Saturn has his temples, you know, devoted to that planet, to honoring that planet. Because it's not like this planet is better than the other. It just is. They are forces that exist within us, and we have to honor all of them. And we have to honor all of them by not using too much of them, too little of them, or if you use their energy superficially, any planet can harm you. Any planet. But if you use the energy of that planet, whatever that planet is designed to produce, within your deeper self, from your soul nature, any planet can take you to your spiritual freedom, your material freedom, your relationship freedom, whatever it is that you're looking for. And that's really the goal of a Vedic astrology counselor. It is to teach people how to not, you know, to honor the gods in an equal way, and not overdo or underdo or superficially use the energy of any planet or any element. And we do the same in Ayurveda. Ayurvedic medicine is the same way. If you have too much fire element, the Ayurvedic doctor is going to give you cooling herbs, cooling breathing techniques, cooling meditation, anything that will cool you down the fire, put out the fire, because you are overusing the fire element. It's the same thing in astrology.